All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into one of the most, let's say, provocative statements in all of philosophy. It comes from a source that really challenges the very foundation of how we see ourselves in the universe. We're going to go on a journey from being a puppet to finding your own soul. Okay, so let's just jump right in with the most startling idea from this source. It basically says this: if you believe you were created by someone, you're a puppet. You don't have a real soul. Think about it. If someone can make you, well, they can just as easily unmake you, right? Anytime they want. And you don't get a say in the matter. So this sets up a huge conflict, really. On one hand, you've got man with God. Here, you're a puppet, right? Strings attached, no true soul of your own. But on the other hand, you have man without God. And what do you get? Freedom, but also a ton of responsibility. And with that comes real dignity. All right, let's dig a little deeper into this whole God as the ultimate puppeteer idea. Because according to this source, this isn't just some abstract philosophical game. No. If you accept this, it completely changes how you experience every single moment of your life. I mean, really think about it for a second. The perspective here is that if every single thing you do, every feeling you have, from love to hate, peace, war, if all of that is just a string being pulled from above, then what does your life actually mean? You think you're dancing your own dance, but you're not. You're just being moved around. And in that world, you lose your soul because, well, it was never really yours to begin with. Okay, so if we follow that line of thought, the source then takes a really close look at something central to many people: prayer. But it doesn't frame it as a virtue. Instead, it's seen as a major symptom of this puppet-like existence we've been talking about. And you can see this sharp contrast right here. Prayer, it argues, is an extroverted act. You're always looking outside yourself. You're begging a higher power. It just reinforces this idea that you're a beggar. Meditation, though? That's an introverted journey. It's all about turning inward to find your own power. And that, the author says, is what transforms you from a beggar into an emperor of your own being. So, okay, if being a puppet with God is a trap, what's the alternative? Well, the source first looks at one of history's most famous attempts to just cut the strings and finds it, well, dangerously incomplete. And that brings us to Friedrich Nietzsche, who of course famously declared God is dead. Now the text gives him credit, saying this was a necessary step, a huge intellectual leap for sure, but here's the catch. It argues that this conclusion is purely negative. And a negative idea by itself can't really nourish you. It can't sustain you. And this is such a clear way to see the diagnosis of Nietzsche's tragedy. He achieved what's called freedom from, right? Freedom from the chains of God. But the problem was, he never found freedom for. He didn't have a positive purpose, a reason for all that freedom. And this left him totally unrooted, floating in this empty, negative vacuum that, according to the source, is what ultimately drove him insane. So if being a puppet is a trap, and Nietzsche's path leads to this empty vacuum, where does that leave us? Well, the source gives us an answer, but it's not in some complicated philosophical argument. It's in a simple, really powerful story: learning how to ride a bicycle. So, the author noticed something. Whenever people are learning to ride a bike, they always fall. Always. And why is that? It's because they're afraid. They try to move slowly, very cautiously, but on two wheels, slow and cautious just makes you lose your balance. And that leads to this crucial insight. Balance actually requires a certain amount of speed. You can't hesitate. It's the momentum that keeps you upright. A bicycle can only stay balanced when it's moving forward. You absolutely have to commit. So what did the author do? On his very first try, he just pedaled as fast as he possibly could. He just went for it. Full speed, total conviction. And what happened? He found perfect balance. Instantly. The lesson here is pretty amazing, right? True balance doesn't come from cautiously trying to avoid falling. It comes from moving forward with confidence. Okay, so how does a story about riding a bicycle connect back to God and Nietzsche and existence? This is where it all comes together. That bicycle, it isn't just a bicycle. It's a metaphor for finding your balance in life. And here's the connection. Theism, belief in God the puppet master, that's one extreme you can fall off of. But the empty, negative atheism of Nietzsche, that's the other extreme. This source is proposing a middle path, a life of balance. It's not about believing or disbelieving. It's about finding a center that connects you directly to existence itself. When you find this inner balance, all those old arguments, theism versus atheism, they become irrelevant. A totally new kind of intelligence starts to wake up, one that isn't just, mental gymnastics. You actually start to feel that the whole universe is alive, that it's intelligent. And you find your roots, not in some belief system, but in the ground of reality itself. So, what is the ultimate takeaway here? At the end of the day, why does this whole journey, from being a puppet to becoming a balanced being, why does it even matter? Well, the conclusion in the text is this incredibly profound realization. Once you find that balance, you get it. You understand that you are not some random accident. You're not a manufactured product. You are a necessary, absolutely vital part of the entire cosmos. And that leads to this really powerful, kind of mind-bending question. The source asks us to just consider this. What if your presence is so essential that the whole universe, the stars, the sun, the moon, the earth, what if they would all feel a small vacant place if you weren't here? A hole that nobody else could ever fill. And that, right there, is the final, powerful point. Your true dignity doesn't come from being created by some higher power. It comes from your own unique, irreplaceable, and absolutely essential role in this grand, intelligent dance of existence itself.